things are nuts right now.
Things are getting really crazy worldwide. And, this happens periodically. I think 1849, Europe, they had lots and lots of revolutions. And, of course, after World War I, all the monarchies got swept away. And it's almost like something like that's happening now. But they're opposing forces. It's hard to figure out where it's going. Because on the one hand, power and wealth is being concentrated ever more in a small group of people, oligarchs in the United States, let's say. But on the other hand, because of the internet, people are free to compare notes and to communicate with each other. In fact, I remember reading Justin Raimondo. He's got a libertarian site, antiwar.com, and he's since passed away from cancer. But I remember something he said was very prescient, and it was after the Arab Spring. Somebody in Tunisia had self-immolated in protest, committed suicide, lighting himself on fire, and that sparked the Arab Spring. And he said, don't be surprised if the Arab Spring comes to North America. And I thought, man, that was really astute of him. And it's because, as he explained, the internet. You're getting screwed, you're getting screwed. If you live in Cuba and you don't have the internet, or you live in China in the old days, you didn't know you were getting screwed because you never got to talk to anybody from somewhere else, and you couldn't compare notes. Now people can.
Now you can be a published author or run your own news channel for free.
Or have your own podcast.
Well, yeah. Big tech makes it so you're not supposed to talk about certain things, or they're going to try to shut you down. But the internet is so broad sweeping now that, yeah, you can, if you know what you're doing and you're not just on the mainstream sites, you can compare notes with other oppressed people groups or people who are just getting
That's right.
the raw end of the deal, and it's never been like this. So the upshot of that is that we're going to see serious, well, I would assume, and all indications point to serious changes at the macro levels at least at some point.
You're seeing pushback, okay? It's a pushback against globalism. And it wasn't just here. It's not just Trump running as an outsider in the United States. Of course, it happened in Europe, too. I mean, Merkel's on her way out. Of course, Brexit. It happened in Hungary. It happened in Italy. It happened in a lot of countries because people are realizing that globalism basically means an end to nationalism, which was the system that preceded it. And people don't want to give up their history or their identities.
Yeah, there's so many disturbing trends right now. I don't recall. I think it was a BLM leader in Utah that wrote an editorial about how the flag of the United States of America is
symbol
now
of white supremacy. Yeah, I saw that.
And of hate.
Yeah.
It's just like you don't know where to turn if you're trying to get an accurate
We are
read
being
on things.
manipulated. Ultimately, we're being manipulated in just about everything. There's a reason the media is controlled by 5 or 6 oligarchical billionaires, and it's so they can control the flow of information. In law, we have there's a case called Daubert, D-A-U-B-E-R-T, the Daubert case, and basically it says the judge has to act as the gatekeeper of information. If there's going to be junk science introduced as evidence, it's up to the judge to keep the junk out. That's what you do in a courtroom. Well, it's kind of like we have the same thing with the media because it's controlled by a small handful of corporate billionaires, and they want to manipulate American public opinion, and they've been controlling that public opinion since at least World War II and actually a little bit before that. And that's why the internet is such a threat, because now people are free to go around the media. I mean, I just saw a poll yesterday. It was a Gallup poll, supposedly. I think something like 17% of people believe the mainstream media now. They just don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that that's changing. If you just look at ratings, ever since Trump exited, whether that was legit or not in November, and then after the 6th, they haven't had anything to talk about. Their ratings they've fallen off, especially CNN. You compare that with some of the alternate news outlets on YouTube, and it's astounding how much of a grip the media is losing.
That's right.
And how fast they're losing it.
That's right. Well, I'm old enough to remember when it was ABC, CBS, and NBC. I mean, that was your choice. Then, of course, with the advent of cable, you started getting a lot of more choices. And now with the internet and podcasts, you don't have to listen to the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune. You don't have to listen to any of that stuff. And it's a good thing too, because they've been caught lying so many times. They finally have pretty much lost their reputation and their trust.
If they're telling the truth, it's a break from the norm, it would seem.
That's right. That would be the exception.
Yeah. Don't you think that it's a pretty good general rule of thumb that if you follow the money,
absolutely,
you can figure out...
Of all the truisms, follow the money is the best one I've ever heard.
Yeah.